Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Everyone raise their right hand. Yeah, that was to get your attention. Thank you. And welcome to the Hia-Li 31st Annual Trade Show and Conference. I will tell you, as of last night, we had over 3,000 people pre-registered. That is a record for us and for all of you, so congratulations. And with the people that walk in today, we should have a jam-packed day, an exciting day, very exciting. So as you know, our theme is Business Connected. And very proud, this is our 31st year. You know, this all looks easy when you walk in. It is not an easy feat to put together. In fact, tomorrow we begin planning with a recap of what happened today for next year. So it would not happen without my phenomenal staff. They make it look easy. Again, not easy. So as you see them, please congratulate them. They put a lot of time and work and effort into this, as well as our trade show committee. Again, we have a great group of volunteers. So I'm going to make a few quick announcements and then bring Carl up. We have several dignitaries that will be with us today. I don't know if they're in the room, but I'd like to announce them. You'll see them walking the trade show floor, and they'll probably be here for lunch as well. So Teresa Santoro, she is the Suffolk County Regional Representative for Governor Cuomo's office. Steve Ballone could not make it this year. This is the first year the Suffolk County executive will miss. He's out of the country, and he felt badly about it, but we certainly miss him as well. Frank Tassone is coming on behalf of Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan, Congressman Lee Zeldin, Senator Phil Boyle, Assemblyman Mike Fitzpatrick, Smithtown Supervisor Ed Wareheim, Brookhaven Town Supervisor Ed Romaine, Mayor of Patchogue, Paul Pontieri, who was also on the panel at our luncheon today, Legislator William Lindsay III, Legislator Tom Silmy, Legislator Sarah Anker, Legislator Susan Burland, and Legislator Stephen Flotterin. So who is running the government today? I don't know. They're all here. I don't know. So again, when you see them, thank them. They really are going out advocating for us and their constituents on a daily basis. To our board members, I am very blessed to be surrounded by these people who on a daily basis really go out and carry out our initiatives. I'm going to announce you. I'm going to ask you to stand just at your seats, hold your applause. Our board chair, Joe Campolo, who will be with us this afternoon, Rich Human, Bob Desmond, Rita DiStefano, Rich Isaac, Scott Maskin, Kevin O'Connor, Anne Marie Scheidt, Mike Volz, Arthur Sanders, Karen Frank, Alana Zalfo, Chris Villamos, Alan Lapolis, Jimmy Coughlin, Jack Kulka, David Manning, Carol Allen, Joe Garofolo, Chris Kent, Bob Corte, Bob Isaacson, and John Bauer. Did I miss any board members that might have walked in? I did not. Please give them a very large round of applause. And thank you all again. To our major show sponsors. So as you walk into the trade show floor, that first aisle that you see are our major show sponsors. Not only do they help fund this type of event, but they're very actively involved in giving us feedback about planning and what went well and what we could do better as a result. So same thing, if you're from one of these companies, please stand, and I'll ask you to hold your applause. The Suffolk IDA, a valued partner, also working with us on our Long Island Innovation Park at Hauppauge project. Very excited about that. You'll hear about it this afternoon. Bank of America, BNB Bank, Campolo, Middleton, and McCormack, Discover Long Island, Event Kings, Farrell Fritz, Jake's 58, LIBN, Long Island Cares Inc., the Harry Chapin Food Bank, Mark Grossman, PR, M&V Limo. The Nassau County IDA has also joined us this year. Newsday, People's Alliance Federal Credit Union, PSEG Long Island, Reliance Communications, Sunation Solar Systems, Inc., Superior Washer and Gasket, Trade Show Solutions, and Winter Brothers. Please give them a large round of applause. Again, you know, an event of this magnitude just does not happen with that type of support, so we appreciate it. As you walk the trade show floor, we have a lot of exciting things going on today. One is we have the general trade show floor, and within it we have things called pavilions, and what that means is they are industries that are alike or the same. So if you're looking for financing, or you're looking for energy, or you're looking for healthcare, you can go right to those sections as well. Visit our major show sponsor, Suffolk IDA, that heads the floor in booth S3. Our programming, you will, for those of you registered for the luncheon today, you'll be back here at 11:30, and we go till about 1:30. And then, as you probably know, we have many complimentary seminars that run throughout the day. How many of you, by a show of hands in the room, are involved in a complimentary seminar? Some of you are. Okay, so these are people who really, again, take their time out to prep and really are doing some phenomenal programming for us. We appreciate it. So this morning's program, I'm going to read Carl Banks' bio so I get it right, but he has a great sense of humor, I will tell you that, so you're in for a great surprise. So Carl Banks is a former linebacker in the NFL from 1984 to 1995, obviously for the New York Giants, the Washington Redskins, and the Cleveland Browns. He was a member of the Giants. They won two-time Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl 21 and 25, as well as a key part of the Big Blue Wrecking Crew. He was standout in their Super Bowl 21 victory, in which he recorded 14 total tackles, including 10 solo tackles. If you've ever watched it, that is not an easy thing to do, right? He is a member of the NFL's 1980s All-Decade team. He currently, how many of you listen to Sirius NFL Radio or WFAN, right? He's great. And we have WFAN actually on the floor today as well. He has become also a very successful businessman and business owner. He is now president of his own clothing line called G3 Sports by Carl Banks. So he speaks from obviously many different experiences to us, both as somebody who has been in a winning team, right? And that's what we need to do in business, and also running his own company. So help us welcome up with a large round of applause, yeah? Mr. Carl Banks.
Thank you, my dear.
Have fun. Yeah, have fun.
Good morning. So I am really delighted to be here, and I thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity to kind of share some insights of how I've been able to achieve success through sports. So, obviously you guys know that I've played for the Giants and played for some pretty good teams. We won some Super Bowls, but I think the beautiful thing about my journey through sports and as it took me into business was that I had great coaches and I learned a lot of good things about winning and teamwork that I immediately incorporated into my business. And because you guys are either management, development, or ownership, I think the same principles will apply. So I want you guys to this is kind of like a dreamland scenario where I'm gonna weave in and out of football. I'm gonna weave in football and then tell you how I worked in business, and I'm just gonna need you guys to kind of imagine yourselves as football players first, and then you can apply the principles to your business. No, you'll see where I'm going with it, and it's a pretty cool thing because I started my business, G3 Apparel, G3 Sports by Carl Banks, my third year playing in the NFL because I had a vision, right? I looked at an opportunity in the marketplace, which a lot of you guys have done if you're in business and you started something. So I wore the brand Starter. Nobody, are you guys old enough to even know what Starter is? Right. So Starter was the brand that was on the sidelines, and I was one of their first brand ambassadors. And it was such a cool brand. I got a chance to know David Beckerman, the owner, and I says, boy, when I grow up, I want to be just like him. I mean, he kind of captured the culture of sports. So I looked at an opportunity. I'm like, wow, I want to get in this business now. And I looked and I looked for an opportunity in the marketplace. You guys know how that works, right? And I saw one. I saw one for big and tall apparel in sports. So that was my vision, is not to be a big and tall manufacturer, but to be a full supplier of all sports apparel. But I had to find a way in. And I had to ask myself, where do I fit? How can I get my foot in the door? And big and tall apparel was the way I did it. So now I'm going to take you into football, right? And I'm going to weave that same mentality, because in 1984 I was drafted by the New York Giants. I had no idea. I'm a kid in East Lansing at Michigan State, so I followed Detroit Lions football, Minnesota Vikings, and Chicago Bears. I knew the Giants had this guy, Lawrence Taylor, and he was pretty good, because he was on TV, right? But I didn't know a lot about the New York Giants. So I got drafted. I was the third player taken in the '84 draft. The Giants were 3-13 the year before. That's why I was taken so high. And so everybody's congratulating me, and they're telling me, wow, you're going to New York Giants. So I did some research. And I found out they had 4 all-pro linebackers. So Bill Parcells told me he didn't draft me to sit me on the bench, but then when I'm walking through the door, I see 4 all-pro linebackers. So immediately, I had to find my niche. I had to figure out where I fit in. Just like when I wanted to find my market opportunity in the apparel business. And the first thing I had to assess is, what are my core competencies? What do I do good right now? Well, my first day in practice was Lawrence Taylor, and whatever I did good, he did so much better. I guarantee you, I had never seen a guy practice so hard. He practiced harder than any game and played faster in practice than any game I had ever played in college. So I was like, wow, I'm really going to have to step my game up. But it worked out, because what I did is to establish that I was a really good run stopper. So I had a specialty. But when you look at Lawrence Taylor, I was like, shit, when I grow up, I want to be like him, right? Because he could do everything. And so, I look at that, and then I look at how I approach my business, and they're both similar. I had to find out what I did well, and then I had to figure out how to scale it, how I could be more important and more valuable. So when you want to build something successful, obviously it takes vision. It takes a bit of understanding what you do well, and then you have to find out how you fit in, or you find a place for you to fit in. And then I had this guy, Bill Parcells, who had just come off a losing season, 3-13. So one thing I learned about leadership right away, because I didn't play for a great coach in college. We didn't have great seasons. High school, I was an all-state basketball and football player, so I knew success, I knew winning, but I didn't know it at this level. And the one thing I learned about leadership, whether you're building a team or you're building a business is that you've got to be able to build the right culture. And building the right culture means having the right people. And once you have the right people, you've got to be able to communicate expectations, right? What does that mean when you communicate expectations? So Bill Parcells made a lot of change that first year because, well, it was his second year, my first year. He made a lot of change because he didn't think the culture was right. He was 3-13. So he wanted to get the thing turned around. Now, being a leader sometimes means you got to be vulnerable a little bit. You got to show a side of yourself, especially when you want to change it, right? You got to show a side of yourself that maybe you haven't shown before. And I always tell the story of how Bill Parcells, you guys have heard the phrase, well, guys, ladies, excuse me, but the Giants fans have heard the phrase around here, Parcells guys, right? Have you guys, a few of you guys heard that? Parcells guys. So how that happened was we're in training camp, my rookie season, and he's cutting players left and right, and very popular guys, right? And he's came up, it was close to the end of training camp, and it was last cuts, and some unexpected cuts were made, and he got everybody together just like this, and we're sitting on the grass, and we're looking at him, and he says, listen, they're gonna fire my ass if we don't win. And so I'm gonna make some changes, but here's what I need from you. Now he's communicating expectations, right? He says, I'm gonna give you everything I got if you give me everything you got. I need to know that the guys here on this field are gonna be my guys. And that was kind of the Parcells guys. So he's communicating expectations, but he's also engendering buy-in. He wanted us all to buy in. We were all stakeholders now in the success of our team. So when you're building something, when you've got to change culture, it's radical sometimes it's subtle, but the change can be radical. I know we've, here in this area, there was some major change with the New York Giants this year. Some of it was popular, some of it wasn't. But it was, in my opinion, about the culture that the Giants want now. They had the best wide receiver in football, loved playing football. Teammates loved him. I loved him, still love him, he's a great player. Odell Beckham. They tried to work with him. I don't think there was an issue. He's a team player. They paid him a lot of money. But when you need to change the culture of something that was really bad prior to Pat Shurmur, prior to Ben McAdoo, you got to get good players. You got to get good personnel. And this is just an educated guess because I don't have direct information to tell you that this is what the thinking was, but I've been around football management long enough to kind of give you an educated guess. I think they looked at it and they said, look, we got to get a lot better a lot sooner. And sure, we can have him here and still not win, or he's our biggest bargaining chip and we can get more players in return. A guy like Odell Beckham is going to be great wherever he goes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the teams he's on are going to be great. He is a generational talent. You've got to put good players around him so that he can enjoy the success and the team can enjoy the success as well. So changing the culture sometimes means you've got to get different people in there. You got to move some people that are very popular. And in business, it's the same thing. If you're struggling to have success, you've got to look at, number one, what can you do better? And number two, do you have the right people to help your vision manifest? Now, I always say, what can I do better in my business? Something I learned from Bill Belichick, winningest coach in the NFL. And I worked with him my first 8 years in the league closely. He was my position coach, then he was my defensive coordinator, then he was my head coach in Cleveland. And the one thing he always says when he starts his meeting, hey, I'm gonna look and see how I can get better so that I can make sure I give you guys the best chance to have success. So when you've got to build something successful, you got to first evaluate yourself. You got to look at, how can I be better? How can I communicate better? How can I give better instructions? Do I know enough to be able to get the guys better, or the team better, or the group better? Because if you're going to build something, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you better know enough about everything that's going on or that's going to be discussed in the room, or else you're going to be looked at a leader that's semi-incompetent. I say that because when I started building my business, my apparel company, I had to learn, number one, how to design it, because I didn't go to school for design. I had an idea, right? I spent time in sample rooms learning how to make a jacket. Then I had to sell it. So I had to learn from people that knew how to sell. And then I had to learn how to market it. What was my opportunity in the marketplace, and how could I get it sold in? Well, obviously, being a professional football player, I can get any audience I wanted, but then they wanted to talk football, I wanted to talk apparel, right? So now that I got your attention is what I would say, let's talk about why I'm here. And if I could articulate why I'm there and why they should have my product, then I became a serious player in the business, because they were like, oh, we'll give you, they'll give me the 10, 15 minutes. They'll just spend 7 of it talking football and entertain me and get me out of the door. No, I showed them product that they needed. I showed them product that I understood clearly, and they were able to say, yeah, we'll take it. And that's how I started business, because when you are a leader, you've got to know every phase of it. You don't have to be the best in it, because you want to hire people that are the best in it. But you better know how it's made, how it's sold, how it's marketed, understand your marketplace. And that's no different than in football. When you are drafted by a Bill Parcells team, you have a core competency. But the expectation is that you know more than just your position. You listen to the players on the New England Patriots, those guys got to know, if you're a tight end, you got to know every wide receiver position. If you're a linebacker, you got to know the linebacker and the safety position. Why? Because you become more valuable. How do you become more valuable? Because you become interchangeable, and your competition doesn't know who's doing what, because this guy's on the field at the same time, and I don't know if he's playing linebacker, I don't know if he's playing defensive end. So that's called scaling. You guys know how, hear the phrase scale all the time, right? How do I scale my business? How do I grow it? Well, I learned to scale through a mindset of learning more about my business and how I could be more valuable to the marketplace. And then in football, it's how I can become more valuable to my team. Because the more you can do, the more they expect you and count on you to do more. So when we talk Leaderships, I'm talking about the vision, the culture, having the right people, communicating expectations, having a bit of vulnerability as a leader, showing a vulnerable side as a leader. And the funny thing about that vulnerability is I was on social media. If you guys ever follow me, I kind of engage with fans quite a bit, but I saw something, a guy, Warren Sharp, who's a football analyst, posted a video from Hard Knocks, and it was the Cleveland Browns under Hugh Jackson. Hugh Jackson was able to accomplish something that very few coaches could accomplish. He went 1-15 and then 0-16 the next year. And then he won 2 more games, and then they fired him because his leadership was not good. And what I saw and what Warren had posted, he says, things not to do when you're trying to change your culture and build success. The first thing he says is don't belittle the people that work for you. Because if there's an idea that improves the collective, you should encourage it, encourage ideas, because you were 1-16 and 0-16 the year after. So something you're doing is not right. So he shows a video of Hugh Jackson belittling one of his assistant coaches as they're giving him an idea. The next thing he says is, don't dismiss an idea because it's not your own. If somebody has an idea that can make you better, why would you dismiss it? So, classic example. Now I'm going to weave back into my football career and how ideas, the exchange of ideas, improves the collective. So, and I was a bit of a teacher's pet with my coaches. I was the guy who always wanted to have the great ideas. We played the Washington Redskins, and in the 80s, the Washington Redskins were a just near unstoppable running team. They had this play called the counter tray that nobody could seem to stop it. And it's because they would pull their guard and tackle around and they'd wipe everybody out. And everybody tried to figure out, well, if the first guy is lead blocking, who's taking the second guy? And coaches around the league just couldn't figure it out because the back could go behind either guy. So I sat and I watched it, and we had so many moving parts trying to figure this thing out. And guys were making mistakes in practice because one guy's out of position and they didn't know how it went. So I says, Coach, I went home and I studied it, and I said, Coach, if they've got 2 guys pulling around and one back to follow, and we don't know where that back is going to go, why don't we just take out the 2 guys and cause a log jam? Now the back has nowhere to go. Coach thought about it, talked to his coaches, they drew it up, we looked at film. We were the only team that could stop that counter tray. John Madden talked about it all the time because every time we played them, they no longer had success, and they couldn't figure out how we were doing it. And all we did is just congested it. So my point is, if my idea was discouraged, then we would have been in the same position as everyone else. We wouldn't have had the success. We wouldn't have gone to Super Bowls because they would have continued to go because they were dominant in the run game. Another classic example, Dan Marino. You guys know Dan Marino, right? You've heard of him. So Dan Marino was known to have this quick release. And I think in 1985, he was setting all types of records, NFL passing records. Didn't get sacked. People were talking about how he's just going to light the league up because nobody could touch him. His release was too quick. And we had the great Lawrence Taylor, and we didn't know if Lawrence could get there, to be honest, because the ball was out of his hands so fast. So, me being a teacher's pet, I went home and I studied. And sometimes understanding the rules can be a big advantage to you. Why do I say that? Because during that time, and I think we probably brought about this rule change, but during that time, you had two-step, they called it a two-step rule. If you could hit a quarterback within 2 steps, it's not roughing the passer. So we're saying, okay, if we can't sack him, maybe we can rough him up a little bit and see if that can change the way he does things. They looked at the rules. We went into the game. First pass, Marino hits it. By the second quarter, he was so flustered. He was on the ground more than he'd ever been on the ground. We ended up beating them. He had his worst game because we changed the dynamic of how he played the game. After that year, they eliminated the two-step rule because quarterbacks were getting killed after that. Because it's the impact. Like, if you can't sack a quarterback, then you should figure out if the rules allow you to get him on the ground. So what we did, we just evaluated the rules and said it's a two-step rule. We're going to use it to our advantage. And we completely disrupted how he played. So again, encouraging feedback, encouraging information is very important when you're trying to build something successful, because ideas do improve the collective if everybody's goal is to be successful. Now, everybody may not approach it the same way, but if your goal is to have success, then it becomes mutually beneficial to everybody. So in sports, everybody gets paid, right? Some guys got big contracts. Everybody has a different motivation, just like in business. Your workers, your employees, they don't all have the same goals. Some want to make a lot of money, some want to make a living, right? But in order for everybody to have their goals met, if you communicate those expectations and get everybody working towards the same goal, it becomes mutually beneficial. It's just like in sports, and it's worse in sports because it's a lot of money. You know, some guys want to take care of their families. Some guys want to make as much money and retire. Some guys want to make a lot of money because they blow a lot of money. But if you can communicate, here's what I expect of you, and this is how you can achieve your goal while we achieve our goal as a team, then you just created a culture of accountability. And when you create a culture of accountability, you got a successful organization because everybody's accountable to each other for the success of the collective, and the collective wins because everybody gets a chance to achieve their goals. So when we weave this football and how it has impacted me in business, these are all the same things that I have incorporated. So I started off by saying I am a licensee of the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, 150 colleges. I started off with a big and tall business, a niche business. I had to find my market opportunity. Where do I fit? What's my core competency? We talk about that. Fast forward to today, I am the third largest licensee in sports apparel behind Nike, and I'm probably the first non-shoe licensee. Nike does apparel and shoes. Under Armour, the same thing, and then it's my company. My core competency is outerwear, but I do everything now. Swimwear, ladies apparel, I own the Starter brand now. I wore it when I was playing, and now I own the brand. But to be able to build that meant that I had to apply a lot of the principles that were proven to be very successful in sports. And the one thing that I will tell you, if you build your, in closing, if you build your staff, if you build your organization around a sound foundation, a great culture, and a culture of accountability, you should not be afraid to fail. Because if you fail, that means you've got the right foundation to self-correct. And when I learned about failure, and I can tell you this, when I played, you got 40 seconds to fail and self-correct. Because if you make a bad play and you're not in the huddle for the next play, it's going to be a next bad play and then another bad play. And I used to tell my teammates as captain, don't let a bad play turn into a bad day. You can't have successful bad plays or else you're killing everybody, right? So to be able to deal with the adversity means that if you've got the right foundation and you built your team, don't be afraid to fail because there will be opportunities for you to correct. Market changes, you look for different opportunities. So building success for me through the lens of sports is the same thing that you guys do today. You just didn't have sports to teach you, but the same principles apply. And I will say this in closing, that success for you, for your staffs, for your businesses, it comes through you, not to you. You've got to build it. You've got to build a solid foundation. You got to know what your core competencies are. You got to have a vision to scale it, and you've got to understand the market. Understand the market. Information is very powerful, folks. Trade shows, you've got competition. Don't close yourself off to your competition. Learn about your competition. You know why you learn about your competition? It wins you Super Bowls. You know how you win Super Bowls? This past Super Bowl, you had the #2 offense in all of football. And the New England Patriots shut them down and held them to 3 points. Highest scoring offense in football. Held them to 3 points in the Super Bowl. You know why? Because they got information. They didn't cheat. They didn't cheat. You know what they did? They looked at what their competition was doing, and the competition was flying high. And there was Jared Goff and Sean McVay doing interview after interview after interview. And they got all of these, TV experts saying, show us how this play works. Sure. And they're just happy to do it on national TV, right? And they're just showing all of their plays and they're showing how they communicate. And this is right before the playoffs. All of a sudden, and they're talking about this is one of our favorite plays because we do this. And then they talk about the terminology and they feel very comfortable with the person that's interviewing them, not knowing that competition listens. So be curious, folks. Learn about your competition. There's information out there that can help you be better at what you do by understanding what they do well. And that's how the Patriots won the Super Bowl this year. So, use every tool available to you. Don't close off. If you build a right foundation, there's an option somewhere available for you to continue to grow your business. My business has gone up and it's gone down. But what I've done is, through G3 Sports, G3 Apparel, which is a publicly traded company, and I founded the sports part of it. I joined G3 with my business. The company itself was about $80 million, the big company. Today, that company is $3.3 billion, using some of the same principles. Because that leader, that CEO of that company didn't know if he wanted to do business with an athlete because he thought athletes all got in trouble and never showed up for meetings. I built a business prior to coming there. I needed to scale my business. So I've grown my business exponentially, and in turn, he often, early on, says, okay, how do I get my people to work together? How do I get, because I have these autonomous groups and they don't want to share information. and I like the competition, but I need to figure out how to get them to work together when we're working with one retailer. And I talked about the exchange of ideas and getting people to have ownership as stakeholders in something. And so that business continued to build. The other thing about that business where my value was, is I had brands. G3 at the time had a black leather jacket that they took the company public with. Well, 7 months later, the competition says, hey, I can do that same black jacket, and it became a commodity. So now it's a race to the bottom, who could sell it cheaper? Well, if you're selling the same black jacket as everybody else, it's a matter of who can get it to the retailer cheaper. There's no loyalty there, but if you've got brands, I had brands because I had the NFL, I had the NBA, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, and colleges. It kind of set the mindset for G3 Apparel to say, okay, if I got real estate in stores, then my competition, I'm no longer a commodity. So to this day now, G3 Apparel owns Donna Karan, DKNY, Calvin Klein, Levi's, Velbreken, Andrew Mark. It's about 7 brands and license others. So the mentality that I brought in from, scaling, having a core competency and knowing how you can grow, how you can become more valuable, those are the same things that we applied in business. And the company is doing well. It's a publicly traded company. You can read up on it. But again, that's just a matter of how success is built through sound foundation and applying principles that incorporate those who work with you. So I'll take some questions. I appreciate your time. I hope I didn't take you guys too far in. If there are any questions, I'll take sports or business.
Wow, thank you. That was just great. Glad to hear it. Especially the part about knowing yourself and who you are is very important. I also believe that as well, and I think you probably naturally found out what your DNA was and what you were factory built to do just intuitively. How important is it for your management and everybody around you to also be that way? And do you stress that amongst them too in order to build a more effective team?
I talked about culture, right?
Yeah.
Culture is about your management style too, and those that you entrust with management. You've got to create an element of teamwork, accountability. So I worked with Bill Parcells when he came to the Jets, right, in his front office. And I would sit in meetings with him, and he would talk to his assistant coaches. And ladies, forgive me, but he would say to his coaches, I'm not going to let you fucking guys get me fired. Meaning, I need you as position coaches to make sure my message gets to the players and that the players can do exactly what is expected. So communicating expectations. Now, he didn't say that in a bad way to his coaches, and that's kind of football talk, ladies, so I apologize. But what he was saying to his coaches, take my message, and I need you to communicate it to these players in a language that they understand, because it's a lot of different personalities. And they may not really, tune in to the head coach sometimes. They tune out. But assistant coaches are the ones that work with them every day. And that's what sales managers are. Those are what customer service people are. The people who oversee them, you got to make sure they're motivated. I have the biggest challenge right now with young, and a lot of people hate millennials, but I got them, right? And sometimes you got to teach them because they're very smart, they're very quick, but they get bored easy. They do. But you put them in sales, they start off like a rocket, and if you don't continue to kind of motivate them, they just kind of drift back down to earth and start looking for the next job. So communicating with your staff to make sure everybody's engaged constantly is very important these days, because when you've got a young staff and they are fearless until they know fear, right? So you just got to keep them going and just, hey, here's another tip, here's another trick, because they don't know it all, but they can learn it fast. You just keep them going, and they just keep running through walls. So yeah, communicating to the people who have to communicate to the people is very important. And they've got to buy into that philosophy. Any other questions? I know you guys got to get to your trade show, but I'm here.
So I happen to work for a company, global firm, where Roger Staubach is our CEO emeritus.
Yes.
So he transitioned to real estate during his NFL career. My question is, I'm an avid viewer of Shark Tank. And that's right. So you see a lot of the inventors who come on the show where they have a full-time job and they're trying to get into the tank, and they're questioned as to, are you committed because you have a full-time job, and they don't take the deal because of that. Do you think that your name recognition helped you, because you were in your mid-20s, when you transitioned into apparel, and if it did, what's your advice to the rest of us who don't have that recognition?
Well, name recognition gets you in the door. Qualifications keeps you in the door. My recommendation is to be able to articulate your vision. Is really what it is. If you know what you want to do and how it fits in a marketplace, you just got to work on the ability to communicate it. Simple as that. My name recognition can work against me because I could be looked at as dumb as a brick. You know, he came in and he had this product, he didn't know anything about it. So we had a great conversation with him, we sent him home, and that travels. See, name recognition, when you have it, it travels, and it could be good or it could be bad. So it's the same principles apply, knowing what you have, how it works, and being able to communicate it. But you got to know what you're doing. You got to know your opponent. You got to know your opportunity. Just like in sports. Know what the opportunity is and figure out the best way to take advantage of it. Simple. If you got an idea and you haven't researched how that idea works, you're probably not going to make it work. You're probably not going to make it work. But if you have that idea and you take the time to look and see, okay, how does it fit, right? Where's my opportunity? And then you think of ways to communicate that opportunity to the people that you need to get in the door, it works. But if you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know your product and you can't communicate that opportunity, you got nothing. You just got an idea in frustration and saying, well, you know, didn't work out. Same. I had the same opportunity. When I was drafted by the Giants, I just had 4 guys in front of me. I had to figure out what I did well and to put it on display. My opportunity to communicate that was through playing, though. But in business, it was the same thing. I looked at it, but I had to learn how my product worked in the marketplace and why they needed big and tall apparel. And that's how I got it started. So same principles apply. Hi.
How you doing, Mr. Banks?
Good.
My name is Big Mike from 103.1 Max FM. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation today.
Thank you.
I was very surprised and impressed to learn that you actually ended up buying the starter brand after your career. What have you found over your years of doing this is the thing that most people are surprised by about you?
That I actually work every day at it. The one big surprise for me, though, people ask me what's tougher, playing professional sports or the apparel business, and I say the apparel business because there are no referees. It's this competition, man. I mean, and it's, you know, it's pretty fierce sometimes because, again, your competition looks at what you do. They want the information that you have, and sometimes I had a situation years ago where my main competition, Reebok, bought the business just to keep me out of it. You know, they went to the NFL and they got exclusive rights to every category, and then they warehoused most of the categories just to keep their competition out. So what did I do? I looked for my opportunity and I says, okay, well, I can't sell Modell's, Sports Authority, Dick's, but I can sell every mom and pop, right? So I created a demand for my product that the guys that really had it and really needed it couldn't get. So it forced them to open the market up again. But I mean, we gotta keep looking for ways to grow ourselves. And it became a great opportunity for me as it ended up, because I had all these specialty stores that were selling my product that I never had before, and they never had my product. And then when the market opened back up for the major retailers, I was able to offer them a product. So I got a new customer base as a result of somebody trying to lock me out of the marketplace. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for sharing with us today. My question is regarding when you discussed cutting some popular people to change the culture. You were new to the team, and you knew that you had, your whole future ahead of you, and there might have been some veterans around that you were looking to as your mentors. How did you cope with those people being cut from the team, and maybe how does that translate to how you might share with your employees how to cope with it when a person that you look to as a mentor or someone that's meant to guide you being cut for culture purposes?
So I talked about communicating expectations. And that's the one thing that Bill Belichick does very well. He brings a guy in from another team, for instance. And the first thing he says to them is, here's what I will need you to do in order for us to be good. And he lays it out. He says, I need you to practice this way. I need you to play this way. Here are the type of things I'm going to need you to do in order for us to have success and for you to have the most success. So communicating expectations is the first thing you got to do with your entire staff, so that when you have to make a change in culture, people understand, okay, well, this is no longer good for, it's a good person, good friend, but it wasn't working for us. We needed to go in a different direction. Changing culture could be performance-based, right? Or it can be a direction change by you. You're no longer, I love you, you're great, but I need someone different in this space now. I'm going through it right now in the sales area. I got a lot of old salespeople who do really well anniversarying sales. You know, I got a guy who can account for 20 million in sales, but if I give him 2 more things that should grow his business to 40, he won't take it out of the bag. That doesn't help me, right? So what do I have to do? I either get rid of him, which means I'm slashing 20 million in sales, or I add someone else in his area. It's going to piss him off, but I'm going to say, well, I gave it to you for 2 seasons. You never took it out of the bag. I didn't warn you that this was coming, but I did give you this opportunity for 2 years and you never took it out of the bag. And this guy has $20 million, so you lost more commission. Good luck. Now, if you want to quit, you can quit, but now he's in your territory anyway, so he'll just pick up your business. You know, so there are ways that, and this is, it wasn't a direct answer to your question, but communicating expectations, people knowing what is expected of them, is what helps when you have to make change within an organization. Popular players or not. And a lot of people, it's just like with the Odell Beckham trade. Nobody on the team really wanted to accept that he was a problem. And he wasn't a problem. But they needed to change the culture of the team, and they needed to get more players back in return. So it works out for Odell Beckham because he keeps all of his money. They didn't cut him. And he's with a new team, and he'll have a chance to continue to grow. But the Giants, they're going to try to make addition by subtraction. We'll see what happens. I don't know if I quite answered your question, but I'd say it really comes down to communicating expectations so that when you lose someone popular, it's not a revolt, because the expectation is that everybody else has to do their job anyway, or else they could be next.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for
Hi.
this fine information. You mentioned that the importance of being of vulnerability as a leader. Is there a point where, as a leader, you can become too vulnerable, and have you experienced anyone who became too vulnerable, and what was the outcome?
So, you remember back in the 90s when they used to have these infomercials on and it was this one-time offer? You know, get it now because this offer won't last long. That's all you need is one time to get the buy-in. I mean, being vulnerable is not a matter of being a pushover. You know, it's articulating, hey, this is where we are. And once you show that side, then you start to communicate the expectations because everybody's bought in now. Now you can hold everybody accountable. So it's not a matter of walking around, you know, wearing your emotions on your sleeve 24/7. You've got to be open to your employees, but there's also an environment of accountability. You're still the boss. You know, you can show a vulnerable side when you want, but you don't want to be a pushover. You want to show that they're needed and that they're appreciated. And after that, it's back to, okay, here are our expectations. Let's go get it together. Guys, thank you so much for having me, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Before you leave, let's give Carl another very large round of applause. Delightful to see this success, someone so real and so humble. Our seminars start at 10:15 in this seminar wing. Thank you. We're back in here, those of you for the executive luncheon, at 11:30.